share it. So I always like to say kind of an introduction of myself. I'll just put this down a little bit. So I'm just like some of you guys. I actually did go to school at NAIT. So I first took my marketing, and then I went and worked in the industry for about 3 years. And then I was working for home and land developers as marketing coordinator. And then I decided to go back, and then I got my HR diploma. So I've been at NAIT, I guess, twice as a student, and then now I kind of do just what Cecile was saying. And it's fun stuff. I was just helping with a pitch competition, and my two girls that were on my team, they actually, I think, got in second, so I was pretty happy about that. But yeah, so I'm a social media marketing strategist. I started Monika Social 5 years ago. And that is kind of where I am. Other than that, I also do have a podcast now that's called Get Discovered with Monika Social. So you can hear me a little bit more on Apple and Spotify. That's where I like to kind of use my name a little bit more, my social media chattiness. But today I'm going to talk about very just basics on how you can basically, I'm just going to click. I'm going to have to move this actually. On how to use social media to grow your business and get customers. So one of the biggest things that I have kind of seen in the last 2.5 years, of course, is that the pandemic has shifted social media. I actually presented last week a whole presentation on how social media has changed from the pandemic, but I won't touch on it that much as a whole presentation, but it has changed things in the sense that now we really have to focus on social media because, I mean, COVID isn't, going anywhere. And maybe if we do have another pandemic, we really do need to rely on things like social media, where some of the older traditions of marketing and sales aren't as prevalent when things like that do happen in our society. So I am going to get started on, and I will say, if you guys have any questions, do put them in the chats, but I will give, like, my presentation is only going to be about 25-30 minutes because I know lots of people like to ask questions. So I like to make sure that I give enough time for questions. So the biggest thing is that when you're doing your social media, I'm going to go over kind of what you should be doing to get more growth and how to get more customers. And so these are things that you need to do in order to get to that point. Social media isn't as much just, hey, let's share photos and hope that people contact us and we get some leads and customers. There are some things that you have to do that are going to take some time. So social media isn't a short game, it is a long game. I always tell people, if I sign somebody up for doing their social media as a client, I always say to them, you have to give it at least 6 months. You can't expect a whole bunch of growth in the first 3 months. It's going to take at least 6 months to kind of see a real growth in getting those leads. So biggest thing is create and share informative and educational content. You can't always be sales pitching because that way kind of people will say, oh my gosh, all they're trying to do is put all their like sales promotion stuff out. You want to actually be known as like an expert in your industry. So you want to do educational content that will help position your brand as an authority. They start to look at you as a source of free, reliable, and useful knowledge. When you focus on teaching and not selling, you gain trust. So one of the things I've done quite well with Monika Social is even on my stories on Instagram, I'm not always sales pitching. I'm using that more of a story to show people, hey, this is what I do on the weekends. And then maybe every other story, there'll be something about, hey, if you want to go and purchase my online mini digital course. But it's not every story or every post that I'm doing, because if I did that, then people probably wouldn't be wanting to get to know me more or coming to my account as saying, hey, Monika's going to educate us on social media. And then number 2 is start conversations on social media. So a lot of people will often, hey, I'm going to focus on my content. So I'm going to post and then I'm going to get off of Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. But that's actually not the way that you're going to see a lot of growth. You actually have to find out where your target audience is spending time on social media and then start involving yourself in those communities by leaving valuable comments and contributions. So if you're on a Facebook group and let's say you're a realtor, you should be kind of commenting on things so that your name is showing up. If you're on Instagram and let's say you're trying to get, some different clients in a different industry, you should be going on their Instagram accounts and joining in on some of their posts and leaving comments, because then people will start to see you. That's kind of how you start to see some growth, is when you don't just focus on posting content, you actually start engaging. So I always say to people that if you post, you should spend about a half an hour a day going through Instagram and liking other people's posts and commenting, so that you're not just posting and not focusing on building the conversation. So that's something that a lot of people don't do, but it is really important into building basically your community. And number 3 is to use social media to drive traffic to your website. So social media, of course, is for brand awareness, but there are things you can do to get people to click the link in your bio. But you have to be putting that in your stories or on your post. If there's no call to actions or anything in your stories, then people don't know what to do. So an effective social media presence will encourage your followers to go through your lead funnel and eventually reach your product purchasing page. So if you're doing a post, there should be a call to action at the end saying, hey, please click the link in my bio to purchase my products. There should be something at the end of every post if you're wanting somebody to do something. If there isn't a call to action, people probably won't do anything. But you're using social media to drive people to your website so that they can look at your about page, your services, your testimonials, to learn more about you. So even if you're thinking, well, why do I need a Facebook page? Well, it's a good place to have so that people click on your website on your Facebook page. Even the things like Twitter. Some people say, well, I don't really know if I need to be on Twitter. Well, on Twitter, people can see your website, so people can click on it. And maybe you're just on Twitter to engage on certain topics or something, but it's still leaving you with brand awareness on Twitter. And then the next one is post consistently. So I didn't put too much onto this one because I like to just talk about it. The biggest thing that I find if I take over a client's social media, I'll always ask in the discovery calls, hey, how often are you posting on social media? And often they'll say, actually, sometimes it's once a week. Sometimes it's like maybe every 2 weeks. That doesn't really help with your growth. You need to be having a consistent plan. So to keep your engagement engaged, if all you can do is 2 posts a week, well, then you need to stick to those 2 posts a week. If you can do 3 posts a week, then stick to those 3 posts a week. But if you're not staying consistent, then you're not keeping your brand acknowledgement up. And that will obviously affect the algorithm so that people aren't seeing your stuff as much if you're not staying consistent. So it is a good idea to obviously have a content calendar where you have, Kate, this is the month of April, and I'm posting every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and staying consistent with that. Of course, you have to look in your analytics to kind of know what times are best for your industry, but overall, it's just about staying consistent and maybe thinking about, hey, I need to be on 2 platforms and do them really well instead of maybe being on all 6 of them, and then you can't keep up the consistency on all 6 of them. So it's about figuring out where your target audience is, and if they're primarily on Facebook and Instagram, then you really need to focus on that consistently with doing your 3 posts a week. And then the next one is going to be actually talking about calls to action. So at the end of the day, you want to leverage your social media presence to bring in new business, which is why it's important to guide your followers to conversions. So the biggest thing is that even if you're on Twitter, oh gosh, let's not do an update or something. Even if you're on something like Twitter, LinkedIn, it's really important that you actually have a call to action on every post so that you're asking people to click the link. Please leave a comment, something that is a call to action. So a call to action is just asking people to do something. But if there's no call to action on your post, then people will just click on by and not know to do anything. So on Instagram, if you're wanting people to, comment below, you actually have to put on the post, hey, what do you think about this quote? Comment below. That's a call to action. You're asking them to do something. So when you're starting to think about your social media and you're wanting to get your engagement rate up, it basically means that you need to have more call to actions, asking people to do things. If you want them to click the link in your bio, and in your bio you have like multiple links, then that's when you have to make sure that you're utilizing that for people to go over to like your link tree and say, click the link in my bio to purchase my whatever, and then it's in there in your link tree. What link tree is, it's basically a free website that you can have that you can put in your URL in your LinkedIn, and it has different spots for different website URLs. So you can drive people right to your website, to your blog, to your courses, to your podcast. There. Dale's actually putting in what Linktree is. It's a great resource. And that way it's actually a really good call to action where you can just not drive them just to your website. You can drive them to specific pages on your website, and it is actually free to use. So thanks, Dale, for putting that in there. And if you guys haven't heard of it, definitely take a look at it because it's very, very usable in LinkedIn if you want to drive people to different calls to action in your LinkedIn or sorry, your Instagram. But it can be used on LinkedIn too. Okay, we went that way. Oh gosh, no, it doesn't want to go the right way. Wrong way. Wrong way. Okay, and then I wanted to go, oh my gosh, why isn't this going the right way now? It's like, hold on, everybody. Oh, there. Experiment with live videos. So one of the biggest things that a lot of people aren't utilizing is what we can use for live video. So using live streams is a great way to boost engagement and interaction with your audience in real time. So other than your posts and your videos, one of the biggest ways that you can show your authentic self and try to sell your products or your business is actually going live. So Instagram is a great way to basically go live. The biggest thing on Instagram is that you can even go live now with a guest. So if you're kind of like, I don't really want to go live myself, you can actually go live with a guest. And then same thing with Facebook. You can also go live on Facebook, but it's a great way to tell people about a new product, something that you're launching, maybe something that you're working on. But even if you go live on Instagram and you start doing it even every, let's say, every Friday you go live at noon for half an hour. It doesn't really even have to be a half an hour. You can go live for 10 minutes and talk about one little topic. But if you do it consistently, then you'll start to see people tuning in. And you don't always have to say, okay, when I went live last Friday, I only had 2 people that came in. You actually should focus on when you share it to your story and then the replay after, you'll notice that a lot more people will go watch it later on. You just need to make sure that when your live is done, that you share it to your story and remind people to watch it later. And that's actually the biggest number that you want to watch. It's not when you go live, it's actually the replay later on. And I know somebody just shared a little bit, I think it was more information about how to do Facebook Live and Instagram Live. If this is new to you, they probably were just posting about it. I'll look after this, but just so that I know some people are new to Instagram and they're thinking, well, how do I go live? I'll look at that after. If you're thinking, how do I go live? It's the same thing like when you take a photo on Instagram, you just scroll over and it says live and there'll be reels and there'll be photo. But there is things like, if you want to tell people about your lives, that's also a good idea. So I'm going to go live this Friday at noon. Please tune in. That's actually a really good idea because then you'll have more people know that you're going live on that day. And if it's consistently that day and that time, then people will start to know that as well. I will look at the questions. There's just a few more slides. And then harness the power of user-generated content. So user-generated content are things like reposting reviews. So one of the biggest things is that you should be getting reviews from your customers or people that have worked with you. And these are really good things to post because people want to know, hey, do I want to work with Monika? And then if there's these good reviews, then it just kind of builds more credibility. And create a branded hashtag. So obviously it's good for each business to have their own hashtag. Like I have hashtag Monika Social. And then when everybody kind of, does anything with me or comes to one of my things like this, if they want to post it again on their story, they can use hashtag Monika Social and then I can see their post. But it's good to start building your own hashtag credibility. And then ask your followers to share holiday themed content. So what this means is that you can actually start to have some fun with holidays. So if you want to do something that's like Easter and then have, hey, post your favorite Easter, whatever dessert and start doing fun stuff like that around holidays and then post a content contest. So That's a little bit around what I was just saying, but you can even have a contest where it's like, hey, take your favorite photo of your favorite, I don't know, house in Edmonton, and then post it to be entered to win our contest. This is just something I'm thinking if you're a realtor, you could do that. Or, hey, take your favorite park view in Edmonton and tag us. So just think of some creative things to do with your business and how you could get some more content out of it. But then when they post that photo, they need to be tagging you and using your actual hashtag so that it's building your brand with having that contest. And then be as human as possible. So being authentic. If you're a dog person, if you're a person that plays the piano, if you're an artist, it's good to have that on your social media. It shouldn't always just be about business. I'm one of those people that's 80-20 rule, so that you should not have everything be business selling all the time, but you do want to keep things professional. But if you are a dog person, if you have a hobby or an interest, you should be putting that on your social media as well. And even if it's on behind the scenes on your stories, if you're going for a walk with your dog, then people start to know, oh, okay, she has a dog and she's a dog person. It kind of just builds a little bit more importance of humanity, personality, communication, and ditching the corporate jargon too many brands are guilty of adopting. So you do want to stay professional corporate, but you do want to be building a little bit of a story with your social media. People want to know the person behind the business. So one of the things that I do really well with my Monika Social is I'm always showing people my personality and kind of things that I enjoy doing outside of my business. And that just builds a little bit more interest for people to want to follow me. So you do want to have a little bit of business and some personal. And if it's something that you're really passionate about, like you're an artist on the side, then why not put that on your stories and say, hey, on Saturdays I work on this piece of painting. It just builds a little bit more interest for your followers, and then people will feel a little bit more engaged they're getting to know you personally. And then number 11 is utilize social media as a customer service medium. So the vast majority of consumers view speed as an important aspect of good customer service. So this is speaking about even as you as a small business owner, it is really important that, hey, if people message you about your product or service, that's what you're utilizing your social media for, is to reply back to them and say, hey, if you have an issue with my product, reach out to me. And even just for the bigger companies, like your big product businesses, your whatever big restaurants, they're utilizing their social media as a customer base so that they can have, people replying, hey, if somebody had an issue with their order, there's somebody there to reply back to it. Even things like WestJet, they have an issue with their flight, there's somebody replying back on it and trying to give good customer service so that it builds more credibility with utilizing social media. So I just like to go over that one because a lot of people don't think of social media as a customer service base, but it is, because what's the first thing that you do now if you have an issue with a product or a service? You're going to go on their Instagram account and message them. So it's good to have somebody or whatever they have being there 24 hours a day to reply to those people, because then they're going to feel like, oh, actually somebody responded and they're dealing with my issue. Hey, this is good customer service. I might use them again. So it's just building a little bit more credibility and making people want to come back because they feel like their needs were met. And then I made this one pretty short because I know a lot of people are asking questions. So I'm actually just going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to go like this. And then I'm actually going to do stop sharing because I can see some questions and stuff that has been in here. I might have to go way back down. Does it cost to go live on Facebook? That's a good question. So no. So Facebook, actually, these are free resources. So going live on your Instagram and your Facebook doesn't cost anything. And the nice thing about Facebook now is you can actually pre-schedule your Facebook Live. So on your Facebook business page, you can actually say, I'm going to be going live at this time, and you can even have a co-host in it. But it's a great resource for free advertising. So if you even want to do it once a month, it's a good thing to do. And then telling people to tune into it. And then you kind of have your own little TV show. I'm going to see what the next one, I do see a raised hand. I'm just going to say, what software do you recommend for content So do you mean like as in content management or as in listening? Because there's two different things there. So if you're asking about the management side of things, that's kind of the same thing as the content, what you're asking. So most people, I mean, in the corporate world, a lot of people will use things like Sprout Social or Hootsuite. But if you're wanting like a whole CRM, which has like a little bit more to do with it, a lot of people will use HubSpot now, just because it does have like CRM and a few more added components to it. But I do like to say that if you're primarily posting on Facebook and Instagram, you can actually schedule your content for free now through Facebook Publisher. It's called Publishing Tool on your Facebook. And Facebook really likes it when you use their free publisher so that your content actually gets a little bit better push if you use their publishing tools. A lot of people don't know this, but it used to just be publishing on Facebook, but now you can actually schedule your content to go on Facebook and Instagram through Facebook Publisher. And why not use free if you're just posting mostly on those two platforms? Things like Sprout Social, Hootsuite, they can usually cost somewhere from $50 to $30 a month. And unless you're going to be utilizing it to post on like LinkedIn or Twitter, then you probably should just be maybe using the free service for Facebook and Instagram. If you had to pick two platforms for growing a business, which would you recommend? I always like to ask the business industry, because without knowing the industry, it is hard for me to answer that. So I would have to know, are you in the real estate industry? Are you in the goods and service industry? Are you a flower shop? Are you a massage shop? Because then I could give a broader answer to that. But if I was to answer just for any business and I didn't really know, then I would probably say Facebook and Instagram. There are reasons for that, just because Facebook is an older audience and then Instagram is a little bit of a younger audience, so that you're still getting both of those audiences. But if you are going to be in a certain industry, then I might say things like LinkedIn. Or I might say things like TikTok. If your target audience is really young, I'm going to probably tell you that you need to start going on TikTok. So I'll go down if you give me the industry it's for. What about placing Facebook ads? Okay, that's a good one. So I didn't cover too much about this just because I do like to go over organic social media first and then secondary ads, because there is a lot of things that I'm an organic social media strategist. So I always coach people on the free stuff first, and then secondary would be paid. The thing about paid is that you need to figure out where your audience is. So if you're going to do paid, then you need to figure out, am I going to do it on Facebook or Instagram? And you need to have a really good strategy in place. So if it's just going to be, hey, this is my brand, then that's kind of a brand awareness. But if you're going to do something a little bit more like, I want people to visit my website and purchase this course, then you're going to be wanting to do a certain ad with that. Again, there is things like boosted posts, which is just boosting your existing posts, or doing a more targeted ad through Ad Manager. And that's going to be setting things way more specific, with a lot more metrics involved. But it is good to do some Facebook ads. It's just the thing is you have to have a budget in mind, where a lot of small businesses won't really have that budget in mind to want to be spending like, $100 a month on paid advertising. How many platforms do you recommend for a small one-person business? I've been told a maximum of 3, and then those 3 are where your target ads are. That's a good, yeah, I usually actually tell people they should focus on 2. Most small businesses are really busy because they're the accountant, they're doing the social media, they're doing the sales. I don't know what else they're doing, but they're doing it all. So I usually say that when you're starting a small business, you should actually only focus on 2 and then build from there. But you really need to figure out your target audience first, with a social media plan in place. So your target audience, you need to figure out the age, the demographics, what their interests are, and then saying, okay, their interests are more on Facebook or Instagram, and then going from there. But I would say 2 is probably good to start, because 3, you got to stay consistent on all 3. How would you utilize social media to promote an e-commerce business? So, good question. So, an e-commerce business is really good for things like Instagram. That's when it's good to have, like, if you're an actual product-based business, having your Shopify through Instagram is the best way to be going about it, or making sure that whatever you have, it's actually set up e-commerce wise, so that if you're using Instagram, you can do a post and then you can pin your product on that post. And what that means is when people click on like a clothes item, they can click and go right to purchase that clothes item. So if you are an e-commerce, you should have things set up like that, so that if you're doing Instagram, that people can easily purchase your products. Shopify is just one of the ones that works really well with Instagram, as well as an e-commerce website. But if you already have something set up on Wix or whatever else, they have integration too. It's just a little bit harder. You might have to have like a web person help you out with that. But it is important to use social media to drive traffic to your e-commerce website. That's kind of the basis of why you should have those social media accounts, and then those call to actions on the post to tell people, hey, go purchase my hats, go purchase my whatever it is. That's kind of what you're building. And then doing some influencer marketing stuff through social media will help sell more of your products on your e-commerce website. Oh.
There's a couple of people with their hands up, Monika.
Yeah, do we want to do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think Elena had her hand up first,
Yeah.
and then Jane.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you so much for your presentation, Monika. It was very informative. I definitely took some notes. I actually had two questions for you. The first one was around posting on multiple platforms. So would you recommend changing the content, like when you post something on LinkedIn, for it to be slightly different versus when you post on Instagram or Facebook? Or would you just recommend like reposting in 3 different platforms?
So that's the first question. That's a good question. So the biggest thing is that if your target audience, if you know that they're on those 3 platforms, you can be posting the same thing. You're just going to have to change things like your links and, the way that you're putting your call to action. So your call to action on Instagram might be like, click the link in my bio, but you can't really have that on Facebook and LinkedIn. But it is okay to have kind of the same content on the 3. But if you're going to want to change things up, it's a good rule of thumb to remember that on Instagram, it's more about your photo or your video. But on things like LinkedIn, you can be sharing more blogs or other resources as well, or your own blogs on there. Whereas then you can't share your blog articles as much on Instagram. So there is a time and a place to have it be the same and have it be a little bit different, if that answers that.
Yeah, that really helps. Thank you. And then just a second quick question. In terms of actually growing your social media, like apart from the number of followers that you have, what are some of the key metrics that you recommend monitoring? Like if we do want to monitor our growth at that 6-month mark, like what is something that we should be looking at?
That's a good question. So with my clients, per platform, we kind of basically go over the top 3 metrics. So the biggest ones on Instagram is obviously your engagement, your reach, and then your shares. So you want to focus on those ones on Instagram, and then they're different on Facebook. So on Facebook, it's your reach, your impressions, and then your engagement rate. So it is different on each ones, but you should be, at the end of the day, checking your metrics at least once a month. But the biggest thing is overall, you want to be looking at the engagement. So is your engagement rate going up or is it going down? If it's going down, then you need to start thinking about, okay, how do I get more engagement? The way to get more engagement is asking more questions and asking people to comment more on your posts. Or asking them, hey, can you share this to your stories? So that's where social media contests come into play, because that actually helps your engagement as well, because you're getting people to share your contest on their story. But it is good rule of thumb. Like for my clients, every month, if I'm doing the 3 platforms, I have the metrics for each platform written down, and I'm writing them down per month and looking at them at a 6-month glance. And you should always have targets in place. So if your targets are, hey, on Instagram, I want to increase my followers by 100 every month, then you should be consistently staying up on that. Because again, if you don't have any metrics or goals in place, then you're not going to really be looking at your basically your analytics at all. So it is important to have a look at your analytics on all platforms.
And Jane, you were next.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Monika, for talking with us today. The question I had is, you had mentioned that live feeds are very powerful, and even if you had two people watching your live feed, and then afterwards you would actually count how many people actually watched afterwards. Is there any merit in actually using pre-recorded interviews? Like if you start drumming up, like, I'm going to drop an interview with this person at this time, and of that nature?
It's more powerful to be doing it live, and then that stays like on Instagram, it stays under your video content and then sharing that to your story. But then people can always go back to watch your live. If it's pre-recorded, that's something that's more to do like on Facebook or LinkedIn. So it just depends what platform you're talking about. But when you're going live, it is broadcasting to all of your followers. So you're going to be getting a better brand awareness. So on Instagram, when somebody goes live, the thing lights up and then you kind of get told. So that's kind of what you want, is so that people are like, oh, okay, she's going live. And then people click in to listen. But the biggest thing that I find is that people don't share that live after to their story. They're not really utilizing the whole engagement of getting people to actually watch it later on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think there was one more. Oh, there was one more. Oh, Saudi.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for the presentation, Monika. One question I had was, what are your different packages and services that you offer for a small one-person organization?
Yeah, so I actually do offer a lot of like social media coaching and mentoring. So if a small business kind of, I just want to learn how to do my own social media a little bit better or more organized, or setting you up with like a content calendar, I offer that service. So that's kind of more like the training and coaching. And then I do have the management side, and that's kind of where it can be somewhere where, hey, I manage your Facebook and Instagram, and then I do 3 posts a week. So there are the two things. And I also do work with, if somebody has an admin person that's doing their social media and they want me to teach them on how to do it a little bit better, I also offer that service as well, with coaching a little bit too. And then I have some people that I do mentoring with that are actually starting businesses like myself as well. As a new service, I started having people message me and say, hey, I'm starting a social media business and I just want to mentor. So I have had some people contact me about that as well.
Oh, wonderful. I saw on your website that the rates for those services were not posted. Are they under development, or are they just?
No, there's the reason behind that is I usually will send it to people once they inquire. Just because I kind of will do like an individual quote for it. I used to have it on there, but then I took it off just because I like to send individual quotes on what the person actually needs. Because some people will say to me, before I had it where it was like three posts on 3 platforms, but then some people would say to me, oh no, I don't really need 3. So can you do 2? So then it just became too hard to update it all the time. So then I usually just send it to people once they inquire now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Was there any more questions? I don't know if I got to all of them.
So Monika, in the chat, I think the next question was from Rashawn, who asks, how should you utilize social media to promote an e-commerce business?
Oh, I think I answered that one.
Did you? Okay, then Isaac's next question, how often do you think we should post on social media every week? His industry is games and entertainment.
Okay, so I would say for you, most businesses, I would say that it's a good rule of thumb to at least post 3 times a week. But then looking at your analytics at which days would be best for your industry. So if you're in the gaming industry, you kind of want to, okay, I'm going to test this out. I'm going to start posting on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and maybe you're going to post at the morning times and then see how that goes for a week or two. Always test it for at least 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, hey, I'm going to post at 9 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and see how that does. And then go back to your analytics and look at that. But I'm not a social media strategist that will ever tell a business that they need to post 7 times a week, because actually what happens is that people end up unfollowing you. So if you do it too much, then it's almost annoying for followers. So you want to do more like better quality than like too much. So if you're going to post 3 times a week, you just want to make sure that they're really good posts and that they're working for you. Whereas, and if you're posting, on Instagram, I sometimes see people posting 3 times a day, but unfortunately, sometimes people end up unfollowing you because you're inundating their news feed. So I always like to tell people that it's better to do 3 times a week, focus on a really good post for those 3, and then that way your engagement is staying up. Good question.
And Carlo is the next one I have here. Asks, how do you handle negative reviews and trolls in social media posts?
So on some of my clients' pages, I do sometimes get we are all getting them right now. They're basically bots. And the biggest thing that I do as part of my management is that I just go on my clients' accounts often throughout the day. And so what I'll do is if there's any of those weird bots, I just usually will delete it and then block them. But if it's something where, let's say they've left an actual really rude or insulting message on one of my clients' posts, I'll usually kind of take a look at it and then I'll say, okay, is this just somebody just a troll, or is this actually somebody wanting to actually ask a question? If it's just something really perverted and not, then I'll just literally delete it. But if it's something that I'm like, hey, no, I can actually reply to this. The way that I was taught when I was working in the corporate world for the 10 years that I was taught to deal with things, and I was working for a pretty large home and land developer in Edmonton. The rule that we would always follow is just reply to it and ask them for their email or phone number to take it off of social media. So you never want to engage with those people and start having it out with them with 3 messages. You want to actually just message them and say, hey, I'm sorry to hear that this happened, this concern. My manager would like to look to it further. Can you please give me your name or your phone number, your email, and we're going to reach out to you further to investigate this. So I was always taught to take it off and address them through email or phone, rather than engaging, because that's just going to fuel the fire, and it's not going to look good on your client's page or your personal page. So yeah.
Good advice, absolutely. Sorry, Monica, do you want me to keep reading them, or
Yeah, because
okay,
I
yeah,
kind of
sure.
lost where I was, to be honest.
It's hard to keep track of them, and you're getting a ton of questions. So, Carrie asks, is it a good idea to have a professional or business profile and then a different personal one? So keeping your personal separate from your business.
Okay, that's a good question. So I personally have a personal one, and then I have my Monika Social. And the reasons behind that is that my niece and nephew and my sister and other family members don't want to be known. They want to have things more public, where my sister's like, I don't want my 2 kids all over your Monika Social. So I keep that. I have to keep my family and the way that they don't want to be public figures respectful. So then I have my Monika, Adams separate one, and then my Monika Social. I still show some personal stuff on the Monika Social, but I'm not going to post all my family photos and my family outings. That's just a way to keep things a little bit, you have to keep some separation. Whereas that's where, when you become at a certain point, and you have, you know, how many followers. You don't really need people looking at your like everyday life all the time. So it's good to have a private account for things like your family and your friends. Because my friends, they're all like, yeah, no, you get noticed out in public now, and we don't really want to. So we want to be, if you're going to post our photo from our birthday, that's not going on Monika Social. So I respect that. And I just put that on my private account, not on my Monika Social. It's a good question.
Yeah, agreed. I do the same thing. If anybody ever signs up for my Facebook, they'll always get rejected. But the rest, I'm good. LinkedIn, Twitter, keep it all
Yeah.
professional, right?
Yeah, and same thing with my Facebook. I mean, if it's, you know, people that colleagues and stuff like that. But if it's just people I don't know and I've never met, then I'm like, nope, that's just where you have to follow me on my Monika Social, LinkedIn, and Facebook and Instagram. So there's always a fine line, right?
Yeah. I think you may have partially answered this one. I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to say with it, but Zoe says, what are the best times to send posts generally?
Oh, okay. I kind of touched on it, but not actually. I said more about how often you should post. So, there is 3 times that you should test out. So the biggest time is when you first wake up in the morning. So like 8 a.m. So that's when most people are kind of, you know, just lying in bed, getting ready. So they have nothing better to do but eat their breakfast and look at their phone. And then the second time is actually at noon. So most people, like right now, they're on their lunch or whatever, and so they have nothing else to do but look at their phone at lunchtime. It's kind of like the breaks of the day people have time. So I would say 8 a.m., noon, and then actually anytime from 9 to 11 p.m. So 9 o'clock's a really good time because that's kind of when people finally put their kids to sleep, whatever, and then they finally have time to themselves. And then a lot of people will tell me the fourth time is actually 3 p.m. But you do have to test it out on your industry and looking at your analytics. But overall, it's 8, noon, and 9 p.m. So always test those out.
Perfect. And Rashawn wants to know if the presentation is going to be shared. I'm pretty sure this video will be shared on YouTube at the Mawji Center's YouTube channel, but do you have any insight on that one, Monika?
I think last time, right, Cecile, it was shared. People can watch it after the fact. That I know. Yeah.
Perfect. Works
Yeah,
for
the video, but they're asking about your slides.
Oh, if you want my actual slides, you can email me and I can send my slides to you personally. It's just info@monikasocial.com, and the Monika is with a K.
Uh, Tawny would like to know, what social media manager do you recommend? Paid or free, doesn't matter. I'm willing to invest in it. And I'll just change the question slightly. Monika, are you available for additional clients?
I am, but I have now niched more into the real estate industry. So beforehand, before the 4 years, I was kind of, you know, open to all industries. And actually this year I finally have decided, because my 12 years of corporate experience was working for home and land developers. So I've now decided to now niche back into that. So I do help mostly like home builders, construction companies, realtors, mortgage brokers, so the real estate industry. So I am open to that, but I don't necessarily help all industries anymore. But I do know some other fantastic ladies that I would also recommend that are more open to all industries currently. And I always like to first talk about the free publishing tool on Facebook and Instagram. So if you go on your Facebook, you can go to publishing tool on your Facebook business page, and then you can publish your content to go on Facebook and Instagram for free. But if you're wanting to do a paid one, my favorite is definitely, I'm going to probably say Hootsuite. But if you're focusing mostly on Instagram, then I would say Later. Later is just, you can't beat it. It's just very integrated. They also have very good content that they post to help you with growing your social media presence. And I actually just was at a Later conference. They invited me, which was really awesome. Because I now tweet with Later quite a bit, believe it or not, on Twitter, and they're just a really good group of ladies, and they do really good TikTok videos. So yeah, I am on TikTok and they're on TikTok. But they're just a really good resource on things like Instagram. So their platform is mostly used for Instagram posting.
Perfect. So, Tawny, reach out to Monika for a specific recommendation or check out those free resources. Priscilla would like to know, would do all the marketing tips that you've stated today work for an artist or musician treating their career as a business, or would you change anything?
I wouldn't, I probably wouldn't change anything. I would just change a little bit more about what social media platforms are going on. Believe it or not, in my 4 years, I have worked with some artists. I've worked with a lot of industries up until this year. I actually worked with an artist here locally to Edmonton that's now nominated for a Juno. And I always told her to focus primarily on Instagram and TikTok. And her TikTok has grown crazy now. So if you are in that industry, then you do need to be on things with more video, of course, with your voice and your character. But that's where primarily I would say, okay, you should probably focus, if you're an artist, you should focus on things more like Instagram and TikTok, because TikTok is just where it's at for those creative artists, and just showing your personality also with your videos and anything that you're doing or going to your concerts or anything like that. It's just a little bit more creative and fun for you to grow on TikTok.
What about something like YouTube, Monika?
So YouTube as well. The only thing I always say about YouTube is really good for growing globally. So I always ask people, when you're doing your social media, are you trying to be local or are you trying to grow globally? Now, globally can also be going across Canada. So if you are obviously an artist, I would definitely recommend YouTube as well. But sometimes all that ends up being is a hub for your videos. And so a lot of the times what I find, like one of my clients, I do their YouTube, I manage their YouTube channel, but we're always sharing it to Facebook. So there's not as many people tuning in to their actual YouTube. It's actually just sharing it over to other social media platforms. But if you are an artist, you probably are going to have your videos first on YouTube and then bringing them over to their social media platforms. But usually on YouTube, you'll get more like worldwide people following you. You won't have as much power to get them more locally because things on YouTube, you can't target down the hashtags to as local.
That's a good point. Tara says she's a registered massage therapist. I'm not legally permitted to utilize reviews to market my practice. Is there another way to obtain that kind of positive feedback?
So I used to actually have quite a few massage businesses actually as clients. And the way around that is that sometimes you can get them to, I mean, you can get them to sometimes do it in a video form. And I know it's not written, but the other way around that is that sometimes you can just, I mean, you're not going to write word for word what they put, but you could kind of like change the wording of it, and still post it. But you can get your hand slapped. So in that industry, it's just the same as in other industries. There's very strict rules. So if you can't do that, then it's just kind of more like you're going to have to put a content video around it and maybe just highlight a couple of the video, like some of the words that people have been saying around you. And what I mean is doing a reel and then pointing to words that people have said about your business. So that's the other way that I would creatively think of doing that, without having the testimonial, is doing a real video and just having the words pop out about you that people have said.
I imagine you can't put them on your website, but can you have them on external sites? Like if somebody, I don't know, reviews your Google My Business page or Yelp or something like that?
So this is the thing is that the businesses that I was doing, they had them on Google. And I had access to their Google My Business. And so they were on there. But then that's the fine line, is whether you want to post those on your social media. So people are still going to see them. You would just have to send them to your Google.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Uh, Enrico wants to know, what are your thoughts regarding the use of social media influencers? Any strengths, weaknesses, or are they mostly used for product launches?
So, believe it or not, I'm an actual micro influencer in Edmonton. So I sometimes get asked to go to, different restaurants or home builders show homes. And so what micro influencers is there's micro, so small influencers. So micro is anybody from like 1,000 to like maybe 7,000 followers, or maybe 10,000 actually. And then a macro, a bigger influencer, is somebody from like 10K to like up. So an influencer is just somebody that basically you're getting them to promote your product, your location, but it's a wide industry. So you could have somebody promote a hotel, to promote a city, a product. It's not just about a product. So it can be somebody just goes and explores Banff and then makes a video about it, or goes and explores a hotel and says, go stay at the Fairmont in downtown Edmonton, or a restaurant. And so it doesn't always have to be so much about an actual product. There's influencers for everything: lifestyle, home builders, makeup. I mean, I could probably just keep going. There's influencers for almost everything. You just have to go and look for them. The way to look for them is that you can use like hashtags. So an influencer, you know, in Edmonton might be using like hashtag YAG influencer. In Calgary, they might be using YYC influencer. Those hashtags they're going to primarily be using on their social media. So then you can find them. If they're on TikTok, they're probably going to be using hashtag influencer or marketing influencer, or a Canadian influencer if they're kind of doing across Canada. But influencers are a huge untapped industry. They're powerful people. If they've got 10,000 views or followers, that's a big following. And most of those people are probably mostly in Alberta or BC, Saskatchewan. So why not have them come to your business and see what they would charge you to come into your business?
And folks, we've only got a couple minutes left, so we'll try to get to as many as we can. Zoe wants to know, how do you decompress from it all?
You know what? I'm one of those people that I've learned the hard way. So my first 3 years of business, I definitely felt burnout. And now that I'm in my fifth and sixth year, I have very strict boundaries with my clients. So they know when they sign the contract with me that I work from Monday till Friday. And then these are the hours. Now, that doesn't mean they can't text me, but my clients are very respectful. So they're not going to text me at 10 or 12 p.m. just because they probably know I'm sleeping. But that's where you have to set those boundaries out really at the beginning and say, these are my hours. And no, I don't work Saturday and Sunday. Even if they're a realtor, that's great that they work, but you're having your Saturday and Sunday off. Now, that's kind of when sometimes the relationship doesn't work out, but then that's kind of where you find out that those people are maybe not your best clients to keep.
What are the best ways to boost your reviews online?
To boost your reviews. So the best ways to boost your reviews are to share it on your social media. The biggest thing is that you can literally do a testimonial post and then boost that post. So that's probably one of the biggest things, or make a video. You can make a reel now of all of that. You can make a TikTok video. If you want to go into more, you can actually do Google Ads in boosting your reviews, but that's spending a little bit more money through Google.
And Zoe wants to know, so if you're going to be shooting videos on your computer for social media, what equipment do you recommend that people purchase for the phone, ring light, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I do have a light, and then I'll show you guys. I just have a gimbal from Best Buy, but it is a good idea to have some kind of like gimbal. So this is kind of like, I mean, a lot of influencers will have something like this too, so they can shoot their videos nicely. But what it is, it's just a stabilizer so that when you're shooting your videos, like you can kind of control them more. But the biggest thing is that you should have a light in front of you. You can kind of see my light. You should have a light in front of you, or you should have really good natural light, just like a photographer. Lighting's everything, and just making sure you're at a good angle so that you're not like, you know, too up, or like people are looking like, you know, I don't know, up your nose. Good questions though.
Yes, that's all I have. I'll throw it over to Monika and Cecile.
We have time for like one more question if there's any more questions. Phone storage. do you mean by
Oh.
that, Zoe?
I have a question. If you could tell us a little bit about the Mawji Center at the NAIT, and I saw that it is for student entrepreneurs and alumni, but for those that are not in at NAIT or have not graduated from NAIT, what services are available? And because on the website it doesn't really share that much.
So from the Mawji Center, basically the only thing that people can engage in who aren't alumni or students is to take part in these type of sessions that we post, host. And even when we have them in person, we're still going to have the opportunity for people to stream in if they wanted to from work at lunchtime or something like that. Or if they wanted to come in person, they could totally come in person. But the coaching and the counseling and the stuff we work with is only for students and alumni. In the city, there's lots of opportunities to get support for entrepreneurs that are not students or alumni, and that would be depending if it's a tech-based company or not. You could look at things like Startup Edmonton if there's technology involved in your business. There's things like the Business Link. And then there's a lot of accelerators and whatnot if you're further along in your journey, but there is a lot of resources in the city.
Thank you.
Welcome. So thanks everybody for joining us today. If you will please, we'll be sending out a survey. If you don't mind taking a moment to complete that survey just to keep us on our toes and make sure we're hitting the spot with our sessions, that would be great. We're nearing the end of semester, so we're holding off on any sessions for the next month so that our students can focus on their classes and their assignments and everything else they need to do at this time of year. Our next session is for students only, and that's April 28th, and that's working with all the post-secondaries in Edmonton, a full day workshop on LinkedIn. So if you want and you're a NAIT student, please follow up with me to find out how you can register for that. And then we hit our Spring into Business series, which we start on May 3rd. And that's for everybody. And that's a session on innovation forecasting, which is going to be really cool. So look for information on that as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Monika. I really appreciate your time, and we appreciate you sharing your skill with us today.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Bye.